Many people have need to align objects, create mock-ups, or add interesting borders or effects to their images. To do all of that, you need to master rulers, guides, and grids. Let's start by taking a look at the built-in grid. Go to your View menu, choose Show Grid. This is quite distracting at first, so let's make it far easier to use. This is one of my favorite tips that has worked in many versions of Photoshop. On the PC, you would go to your Edit menu and Preferences and Guides, Create, and Slices. On the Mac, Photoshop Preferences, Guide Screen Slices, and to make this creative far less busy, I will skip the window over a bit, and instead of the grid line every inch, I am going to change 1 to 50, and instead of every 50 inches, I am going to choose %. This is added 10 or more years ago to Photoshop. Now these lighter lines that you are seeing are the subdivision. I only want one subdivision. And now when I click OK, I could see the dead center of every image that I open as long as I have migrated all. How you can use this is add burned corners or borders or edges. So I am going to show you a photography trick that they called burning the corners, or my method to create. I will go to the marquee tool, and with the rectangular marquee, usually you click and hold to make a selection. If you have got accelerated video card, you get those new rich cursors showing you the width and height. Clicking outside, deselect, but I am going to use my grid. So I line my plus sign, that is my cursor, up to the dead center, the intersection of the grid lines, and I will hold down Option on the Mac or Alt on Windows, and make a selection from the center out as I drag with Option or Alt held down, and let go of my mouse first, then Option or Alt. My selection is nice and even around my image. If you let go of Option or Alt before your mouse, your image may jump, or the selection area may jump on you, so make sure that you always let go of your mouse first. Now I am going to use a popular effect from the Select menu, Modify and Feather. Feather will soften or graduate the edges of this selection area that I have drawn. So I am going to use a very large feather, 50 pixels. This number varies greatly depending on the resolution of your image, but 50 should work for this photo. So I will click OK, and you will see the edges of my rectangle are now very rounded corners. Before I apply the effect, I need to do two things. Firstly, I am going to make a new layer so that I don't harm the original photo. Under the Layer menu, I chose New Layer, and I will name this Black, and I will click OK or hit Return or Enter. Second, I will choose Select Inverse. Select Inverse grabs only the outside areas. You could tell you got the opposite of the inverse because the marching apps are here at the edge and then inside here. Now I am ready to choose, Edit, Fill, and once I choose Fill, instead of the foreground color, I will choose Black. Then I click OK. Now I have got nice depth along the edge of this photo, calling attention to this gorgeous shot of the statue. I will choose Select and Deselect, and if I want this effect to be softer, I can dial down the opacity. If I find the guides or grid lines distracting, I can go to View, Show Grid to hide them, and here is the effect calling the focal point of the image right to that statue. I love this. The next effect I am going to use is to make it look like a light is shining on this model's face, and before I do, I want drawings and guides around her face. So I will go to Review and choose Rulers, and you could see the shortcut Command R or Control R. And I will simply draw a few guidelines around her face, getting in the hash marks for the ruler and dragging down for horizontal lines, or in the hash marks where the numbers are on the left ruler and dragging to your right. If you create a grid line or guide you don't want, simply drag it back to the ruler. And I will move this went down a little bit. Now I will use the same trick I did earlier, but this time I will use an elliptical marquee tool. I am going to move to the rough center of my grid lines, hold down Optional Alt, and make a selection of her face from the center out. You can actually let go and move that selected area if you aren't happy with the results, and I will do the same thing I did earlier. Select, Modify, Feather. Once I choose Feather, I will do the 50 again, which softens or blends the edge. Now I will do Layer, New Layer, name it Black, and I will choose Edit, Fill with Black again, and click OK. Now I forgot it's done, and I often like to leave these in the video so that you could see you forgot a step. Something bad may happen. Here is the step that was missing. I will undo that, and now select the inverse. If I fill with black, it's only filling inside her face. I want the opposite. I want all the background darkened so her face looks like it has a spotlight on. Once I had done the select inverse, it's now safe to do Edit, Fill, leave it on black, and click OK. And there's a lot of stuff going on right now, so a quick way to hide everything is to go to the View menu and choose Extras. View Extras will show the grid line or the marching end. If I look back under View and uncheck Extras, now everything is hidden, and I can lighten the opacity of that black layer and notice how it looks like a spotlight is shining on her face. And that is our tour of adding guides, a grid, and using the rulers. Now that you have seen how they work, get out there and try some of these effects on your own images.